Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Okay, welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me a beautiful gentleman I met like 2 weeks ago, Jeremy Scevers, who is awakening to his gifts as an energy healer. And we had an amazing discussion, and I got intuitively guided to have him on the show. So thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And again, I really enjoyed our conversation there, a couple of weeks ago, and it's nice to be able to kind of circle back. Shortly before we started, we were kind of talking, a little bit about, our journeys and somewhat, and mine, I guess to me it's interesting as it as it would be since it's my life. Prior to kind of getting into this, we'll go back maybe to about 2020,
Okay.
and yeah, and just really going into a just a time of questioning paradigms. I was raised very religious to the point of having aunts, uncles, grandparents, pastors, missionaries. It was just something that I was very involved with. And even in myself, being a deacon and, young adult leader, all that kind of stuff. But it was really just questioning a lot and had really been going through some extremely difficult times. It was also kind of around this time and even shortly after where there were some family traumas and some abuse and things that had come to light. I became very familiar with narcissist personality disorder, both from family and spouses, and I'll say that nobody that I know has been officially diagnosed with that, but with all the research and everything I did, that was the only thing that really seemed
Yeah.
to make sense as far as what was going on in my life and those around me. So it's kind of started with I go back to this desire of wanting and really kind of needing to be out in nature and at the time I was a regional sales manager for a company. Had been with the company for many years and successful at it, doing well, but I think even kind of leading up to that, it just seemed like something was missing maybe, and as I would get out into nature and really, there were a lot of little things that kind of in the background that contributed, but I kind of started having an affinity for rocks. Like I would be out in nature and pick them up, and even my son. I have two children, and at this time my son I think was around 4 years old or so, and when we would go places, and my daughter as well, but it was my son more that would kind of pick up rocks and be like, "Here, Dad, I got these for you," and so we'd save them and I'd have them. And then, I kind of started to pick that up and really as I begin to just kind of hold the rocks and even kind of stack them, whether it was in a tower or just put them in piles, I started noticing that there was this magnetic type of energy. It would almost like if you were when you were a kid, maybe, and you take two magnets and kind of put them together, whether that was the opposing force or not, you could just kind of feel that a little bit there. And
Hmm.
and I started noticing some anomalies with that, and noticed I picked up some rocks one day, and I was kind of holding them, and I felt that magnetic. Well, that's weird, like I don't remember that, and so I'm Googling, and it's like, okay, rocks can have magnetic properties, but still don't remember that happening. So this kind of continued. I would go to like the crystal shops and rock shops and buy polished ones. I would get ones that I would find on the side of the road. And it was funny. I would try to touch them as little as I could, and like literally just wait till I got home, and then it'd be like, all right, I'm gonna put these two together. Let's see if they're magnetic, and I would do that and be like, oh, what is happening? Why am I attracted to magnetic rocks? And so, I mean that was kind of the thought process, and just kind of one thing led to another, and in my mind, it wasn't anything significant, but it just happened to be New Year's Eve of 2020 when I kind of worked up the courage, I would say, to sort of put the rocks down and find out if this was coming from me, because it was logically it was kind of the only thing that was making sense, but that didn't make any sense, and I wasn't really sure what those implications were. So I put the rocks down, just started to put my hands together like this, and it was like what is happening? Why this is I wasn't able to do this before. What does this mean? And
Yeah.
and when I put that in context of really what was just very tumultuous time, going through just different divorce proceedings and dealing with some things that were in the background that I didn't know was happening in the background that was
Mhm.
impacting my life in a pretty significant and harmful way in some areas.
Mhm.
And so putting all that into context, I was like, I got to figure this out. Like it was just something I couldn't let go of. And I remember, I'd connected with a couple of people and I'd called somebody that was an old friend. And I would say now, I realize why they were an old friend in the first place, but that's okay. It was part of the journey.
Mhm.
But I remember, telling them about this and actually meeting, and I would just kind of hold my hands like this and kind of go like this on the side of people's head a little bit. It was like, and they're like, oh my gosh. And, they're talking about their toe would like stick to the ground and stuff like that when they were sitting in a chair. It's like, okay, we can do some good. This is something other people are feeling, and I'm not nuts, you know. And so I, began working with people, and again, just all intuitive. There was kind of a friend of a friend who had a cochlear implant, and there were
Mhm.
times where he would talk about how, like he could typically walk, but there were times where if it was bothering him, it would kind of affect his equilibrium to where he would be in a wheelchair or sit. He just wasn't
Oh.
comfortable being able to walk without falling over, or falling, and would have headaches. And so, in just a few minutes, really without fully knowing what I was doing, just waving my hands around his head at that point,
Mhm.
um, he actually got tears in his eyes and was able to stand up in that moment and be able to spend the rest of our time together at least walking. And he said it literally felt like pressure was just releasing out of his head, that his head was gone. I was like, okay, this is incredible, and so I began to just kind of seek opportunities, to help people heal. And then I thought, okay, well, and then also going on through all this time, I lost my job. So and so it was, okay, well, obviously the universe is directing me towards, putting this into practice, and this is how I'm going to support my family. And great, it's going to be fine, and it's been several years, and we're still working on that goal, of getting there. But I ended up taking an online course for Reiki, because I thought, well, if I don't really know, wasn't sure exactly what it is, I just looked at it as a gift from the universe, and then over the next few years, just kind of put that all together,
Mhm.
as to kind of what that was. But so I got my certification for a Reiki master, which is it's awesome. It's great. There's a lot of wonderful things about Reiki, like the sort of like the tenets or the beliefs, the just for today I will not anger, just for today I will not worry, just for today I will work with honesty and integrity, just for
Mhm.
today I will be grateful for all my blessings, just for today I will be kind to all living beings. That was something that really resonated with me.
Mhm.
But I also, at the same point in time, I just had a difficult time, I would say, pigeonholing or wanting to label the energy I work with and what I do simply as Reiki. Because to me, sort of
Mhm.
the history of Reiki is that it was created around the 1940s. I don't think it was created then. It's always been there. I think
Yeah.
somebody was able to attach a label to it, and essentially, I don't want to use the term doctrine, but something like that kind of around it, and then present it. So I'm fine, if somebody wants to say Reiki or whatever energy, but I tend to think of it as, this was a gift that I was given from the universe. I did not
Mhm.
pursue this. I did not do any sort of attunements or anything like that to try and develop this gift. This was something that was given. And so that's sort of where I lean. I do like to give credit where credit is due, and that credit really is to the universe, and I will rely a little bit on some of my previous religious nomenclature, just because not everything about religion is bad per se. You know, I think
Yeah.
like anything, even spirituality, there's a lot of truth and there's a lot of things that aren't true that are kind of all mixed in together, and it's up for us to filter through those things out. So,
Yeah.
I look back on during my religious experiences when, even as an early teenager, and I remember experiencing something that within Christian cultures or circles would be called as baptism of the Holy Spirit with evident of speaking in tongues. And I've been around that a lot, when I was younger. Even with all the amazing, incredible things I've experienced today, that experience back when just before I was 16 years old, still probably the most existential and amazing experience I've encountered. It was absolutely nothing I pursued. It was something that just hit me, and um, something that I really didn't utilize even within religion, I would say, for a very long time. But as I started going through all the difficult times that I was for a period of time, it was something that came back out of me because I'd literally gotten to the point where I ran out of words I knew to be able to pray. Like I was
Mm.
just empty, like I didn't have anything left. And then it was kind of like that remembered. It was like, it's like, bro, you got the Holy Spirit, man. You've got this gift. Let's start using that. And so really my prayer life for a while it just became just that.
That's
And
beautiful.
yeah, looking back on it now, yeah. In the moment, it wasn't like, oh, this would be a beautiful thing. It was for me. It was like, ah, what do I
Right,
do?
right, right. No, I get it. Like I've
Yeah,
experienced, so I didn't know this about myself, but like when I drive, I'll just like do this with one hand when I'm listening to music. That's a form of
yeah,
what I know as light language is probably speaking in tongues. And I've had like and I lived in the Mount Shasta region for a few years, and so like that was a thing, and they call it light language, and I was like, okay, and then I'd have these words come out of my mouth, like, and I'm not even like preparing myself for it or anything like that. It just comes out, and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. But what's fascinating is in the past 6 months, I'm getting songs that I haven't heard in this life come out through me
oh
with
wow,
words that I don't know come through me. So I record them just because I'm fascinated by it. And I know Matteo Stefano at one point, he was on an Aubrey Marcus podcast and he started singing Atlantean lullabies, and I remembered them.
wow,
And I was like, okay, I am an old soul and I have no idea what that means.
yeah,
I love that you're tapping into these innate gifts that we haven't been told that we have, right?
yeah,
Your ability to
yeah,
connect.
and yeah,
Yeah.
I'll say I'm pretty fortunate, I think, in the way that I've received these gifts that it's kind of unmistakable. There's no wiggle room for me, like as
Right,
far
right,
as
right.
I can't doubt it. Like I know my experience. I know what I live. I know what I feel. It's like whenever I'm channeling energy, it's like it's unmistakable. I feel it. I know if it's coming out of me or not, like, or if it's flowing through me in that regard. And so yeah, it's just really trying to tap in, and it's been such an interesting journey because it's like it's unpeeling layers after layers of really incorrect information, and and then sifting through a bunch of information and trying to kind of piece that all together. I mean, it's a fascinating journey. It's one that, if I was to ask the universe to do it over again, I'd like a lot more free time and space and resources to do that with. So it'd be a little bit quicker, but the
Yeah.
universe has different plans, or had different plans, throughout this time. But all of that, everything that's gone on up until this point has brought me here to this point right now, being able to have a conversation and really talk about what to me feels like whenever I'm doing energy work, it literally feels like I'm living a miracle. Like it's I understand it more now. I understand, I've looked into the quantum physics a little bit. I understand, and I'll go back to miracles and magic. I think another way to describe those, it's still science that we just don't really have a good explanation for. You can look at, mysticism and say, yes, this miracle was performed, but yes, there was a way that it happened. So, you know, having that sort of background, but still having that feeling of like, even though I know there's some science that's taking place, I still don't understand it fully. You know, I look back, but I know it works. It's like it's what's so amazing is it's just, again, to being intuitive, right? Like when I'm doing a session with somebody, it's like sometimes I might have them place their hands in a certain area, or sometimes not, sometimes I'm typically using what I would call the divine language, I've received from the Holy Spirit. Sometimes I might be using a certain crystal a certain way or doing something a different way. I mean, there's just all these things, but it's what's beautiful and amazing to me about it is that it's just something that happens and you can feel when you're in the alignment and the flow. And there are times when I can feel when I've been a little bit out of it, where it's like where I'm maybe thinking more, and then it's like I gotta catch myself for a second and just be open to the flow and going with it, you know. Um, yeah, I
I
know I've
feel
kind of been rambling maybe a little bit, but
No,
it's
I feel that like I was at so I'm in Bend, Oregon right now, and every month there's a women's drum circle.
okay.
And there's anywhere between 60 and 70 women drumming. It's a powerful experience. And what I
Oh,
noticed this week, because I'm usually one of the ones that drums over people because that's just what my soul wants me to do. So each woman had a different drum beat from me. And I was
oh,
like, this is really interesting. Like I'm just being present. I'm not judging or anything. I was like, okay, this one's getting this one. And it just came through me. I was not like preparing anything. And then when one of
yeah.
my sisters, like that I love dearly, came through, I grabbed a cymbal and I was like, or not a cymbal, but yeah, I guess it's a cymbal. I was just like rattling like this around her, like I was clearing some, and I'm like,
Like a tambourine, maybe,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing, or
tambourine, excuse me, yeah, tambourine.
yeah, okay,
And
okay,
I was like doing that very intensely for like, I don't know, 5, 10 minutes over her. And I don't know what I never used a tambourine before, but it was like coming through me. I'm like, no, we're gonna, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
this is really interesting. And like over her head and over her feet. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. And I didn't need to.
yeah,
And that's the gift because it was just something that was flowing through me. I was an open conduit for that energy. And when I do sessions with animals, body talk is more for it's a combination of right brain already knows that left brain needs to try to quantify it. So I
yeah,
like get words and phrases that I write down. But when I'm in that space of channeling, the animal comes through me and tells me what they need. I don't go through the protocols because the animal doesn't need me to, because they're telling me. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't need to do a yes or no in my body because like I already feel it. Like they're just like, no, no, you're just like the conduit. And then when I'm ready to tap in the formula, I look at my handwriting, I'm like,
huh?
okay, I think that says, and like I'm just trying to read it because I'm not here, I'm not present because
Yeah,
I'm the conduit. And it's such a cool state to be in, to feel that quantum entanglement and to just tap into consciousness because like I had a sheep last year that was in England come into my consciousness and she settled into my heart. Usually I claim I need a picture to work off of because that's my comfort zone. I
yeah,
don't need a picture. I like having pictures because they make me feel like I'm not completely crazy. Um, but she was like boom in my heart and like telling me what she needed. And I'm like, wow, I've never felt that level of like, I'm in Oregon, she's in England, and she's just like, nope, you're working on me now. And
yeah,
like I got done with a session and I felt like the only way I can describe it is pure, gentle, unconditional love in my heart from gratitude. And I just started crying because like she was going to be put down. And she showed me that she was just mourning her brother's death and it was stuck in her elbow. That's why she got lame. And she was so grateful. She was just like, I'm just going to gift you like sheep love. And I'm like, what is that? I,
Yeah.
I want to, I just want to live in this because this is like divine. Like it was so pure. And within a week,
Yeah,
she was walking normally again. And I was like, thank you, Source. Thank
that's
you,
awesome.
God, whatever you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for letting
Yeah.
me do. It's such a gift to like tap into that energy because we are all energy. And my favorite aspect of quantum physics is
Yep.
entanglement because it makes so much sense. Like, of course it does. But
Right.
yeah,
Well, and
the,
I think, you know,
go
I was
ahead.
just say you brought up a good point there about kind of going off this, you know, kind of going off script a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like you had everything, and I can relate to that a little. When I was doing the my Reiki training courses and stuff, I had something that was kind of similar where, you know, they talked about, well, if you're doing, you know, distance healing, you know, or anytime you're doing, you know, you want to draw this, you know, sacred symbol in the air, you know, do this one 3 times, or for certain kind of healings, you do this sacred symbol, and I thought to myself, it's like, nope, because by then it's like I had already had successfully helped someone through, you know, like FaceTime through a Zoom call, done that through over the phone, and it's like, well, why do I want to overcomplicate things? You know,
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
if it really isn't needed, then let's not add that layer then, and you know, and
Yeah.
so that's I think like you said, kind of you know being open to trusting what it is that we know and what we're given inside us to go at that moment. And I'm grateful because now it's like if I would have made a different choice, then who knows? Maybe I would have got caught up in having to, you know, draw some imaginary symbol or a symbol in the air 9 times before, you know, and I don't need to.
Right, because
Um,
you intuitively know it. I mean, it's like a comfort level. Like I know kinesiology is amazing. I ask my body to show me what a yes and a no feels regularly, especially when it's something I shouldn't be eating.
my body usually lets me know that later. That's
No, mine is like the only thing like my vice is chocolate. I'm allowed to have chocolate, and it has to be a certain brand of chocolate because like everything else is a different frequency. So, and I've
oh
gone
yeah.
through the iterations. I have to have coconut. It's actually Dr. Bronner's chocolate because it's like the frequency is there. And I've
Nice.
tried other coconut sugar chocolates before and they just don't have the frequency. I'm like, really? Really? Oh, okay, fine. All right, fine,
So
buddy.
that's
You get chocolate. That's fine. That's what you need. I'm happy to give it to you. But like honestly, I've most of my well, for the most of the past 10 years, I've been plant-based. And about 3 years ago, my body's like, I need beef. And I'm like, you didn't like beef. You made me stop
yeah.
eating beef. What is the thing with the beef? I was like, you need beef. And I ate it. And all of a sudden I broke through the barriers of what I perceive I need to do for my body. Because, when you
Wow.
pick a diet, and I very reluctantly went plant-based. I was fighting it all the way, and I finally did. And then all of a sudden, my body's like, "Yeah, we're done with that." I'm like, "You know how long it took me to get here, right?"
Right. Yep, and congrats, you did it. Time to move on.
Right. And it was just like something my body needed. So I just give up, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm just going to do intuitive eating, and whatever that looks like in a given moment, because my body knows more than I do."
Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent point about, you know, listening to our bodies because we do have answers. I think a lot of times it's maybe not it's the answer we're not hoping for sometimes. So it's harder to listen, but whether it comes to foods, when it comes to I think even interactions with other people, you know, when it comes to statements that we make. I mean, there's energy that's present there. And it's like, you hear these terms of like, resonate. And, maybe sometimes that gets overused, but if you really stop and think about what that means, it's like there are times where I've had those, made a statement or have, an action with somebody and you feel that you like, that resonates. And there's other times where it's kind of been that opposite, where I've, believed I've been coming from a place of truth and I've said something and it's all of a sudden I can feel it in my body like there's something a little amiss just because you don't know it. There's something that's a little amiss there. And so, but we, then utilize that, right, to find out what that is. And the same with food. I go through the same things where, I might be craving one thing for a while and then all of a sudden it's a switch. I had several years ago, like I used to not really care much for like spicy foods, like anything that had a lot of spice just wasn't my jam. And then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, it was literally like I just had this desire to start putting Tabasco sauce on my eggs for a while, and I'm like, I had to go get Tabasco sauce because it was just like this, and it didn't last for real long. It was a period of time, but I've noticed that sometimes with like tomatoes or like certain fruits, it's just
Mhm.
all of a sudden my body tells me, no, you need to start eating this right now, and
Yeah.
so that's what
It's
I
just,
do.
it's fascinating. It's like, okay, this is just the journey that we're on. And I, it just like frequencies and resonance, what gets me. So it's not just what we eat, but like, this is the dog ripping up his bed noise that you may be
Yeah.
hearing in the background. Um,
That's fine.
like I can listen to somebody and it's akin, I don't have perfect pitch, but I have close to perfect pitch. And what I've been shown is like I'm being a violin, I'm like a violin getting tuned. And I like frequencies, like I can't, there are some people, some shows, lots of shows that the frequency is off and I can feel it viscerally. And it's like, there's no explanation, there's no judgment. It's just like, nope, that's just not for me.
Yeah.
But it's like it's like it's almost like nails on a chalkboard kind of level of dissonance within me, and it's just so fascinating because I'm like, oh, okay, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah. But it's good to pay attention to that and recognize that. And even what I've found, it's like, sometimes maybe what isn't working or what isn't good, maybe that's just the way it's going to be for, however long. Or
Right.
there are times where just because something wasn't necessarily good that day, it
Mhm.
could end up actually being okay or be useful or end up being good in another context or in a different day. And I think that's staying open and not allowing ourselves maybe to be quite so rigid even with our own rules. I know that's something I've had to look at too within my own self is just being open and realizing that you know really the universe, divine source, it literally permeates everything. I mean it is in everything, and sometimes it's a little harder to see and a little harder to find maybe, or maybe we're not looking in, we're looking in ways that we're so used to looking that we forget that there's other ways to maybe see something sometimes too. But um, I mean, life, I just kind of go back to, this idea that life is far more magical and amazing than I know what I was brought up to believe. And it's something that all of us have the ability, I believe, to tap into. I mean, it might be like anything else. Some of us might be, more gifted in one area where others are more gifted in the other area. But regardless of that, it doesn't matter. We all have this ability within us because the very fabric of the universe is in within us also. So we are connected, you know. It, it, quick little sidebar. I don't know why I can't get this out of my head, but I've talked about how this is a life and a journey and being an energy healer, all these things that it's It's like I remember it was like, well, I didn't really ask for this. I didn't expect this. This was things that just happened, you know. But I also remember specifically both in prayer and even as kind of a just a wish to the universe more than once. There's a couple of times, and this was coming from really, seeing family members struggle, people be in pain, and myself. And I remember saying, I just wish I could just wave my hands around and help people feel better. And years later, that's kind of what I do.
That's
It's
awesome.
I'm waving my hands around and it helps people feel and tangibly heal. Like, I had a gentleman that was at a little retreat and it involved some activities where we are going to be dancing around and stuff. And he's like, had some ongoing back issues and wasn't able to participate. So I was like, hey, and I'm still very, very new with, figuring out what energy was and, being able to do just a brief session and he's up jumping around like nothing ever happened. I mean, it's like, it's hard for me to even put into words. It's like, I know I can sit here and describe it,
Mhm.
but until you're there and you experience literally, I mean, it's in some regards, it reminds me, I'm not trying to put myself in the same category as, disciples and even Yeshua and those things,
But
but
you're
but
divine
it's
too.
that
That's what
same
I'm
type
talking
of
about.
energy. It's
Yeah.
it's that someone has an ailment, and it's impacting them, and like that, all of a sudden they're feeling better. That's
Well, we all have
incredible.
that. That's the thing is like we all have that ability. We've been dumbed
Yeah.
down that we don't. But because we're in the process of the ascension we've heard about for so many lifetimes, we're actually in it right now. These gifts are coming online to help us remember. Like my soul wants to fully remember and embody my Christ consciousness. I don't even know what that looks like. Like what do you mean? Like that's kind of
Well,
intimidating. What are you talking about? But
well,
it's
and yeah, and I just lost for a second, but it's kind of getting back to that Christ consciousness. I go back to all the years I spent within Christianity, and for me, my own personal experience, I think I understand now far more what it's like to be Christ-like than I ever did within religion.
yep.
Um, because, like it or not, religion adds rules and has kind of twisted things in some regards. And I think that impacts the way people think. It's kind of like you're taught or told one thing in religion, but it's actually lived out differently. And so there ends up being this maybe cognitive dissonance, maybe, of believing you're doing something because that's what you're being told. But the reality of it is it's living out a little different way. And, for me, the idea of religion, it's both a stumbling block and a stepping stone. And I think there's some good things in there, but um, you can't
It's
stay stuck, I
incomplete.
don't think. It's hard to, you know?
Yeah, it's because like I grew up with a Protestant family and mom was the organist. Uh, Grandpa was a deacon, grandma ran the cradle roll, and dad was the Sunday school teachers, and I was the only child. And I was not just the only child, I was the only child in the church for about 6 years.
Oh, wow.
So I got a lot of attention, way
Yeah.
more than I wanted. And everybody was like, oh, look at this. And I know I was like, I came in fully awake. I sadly shut that down when I was 10. But like I can't, so like everybody's like, oh my gosh, this light child, like let's just maul her because we want her light. And
Yeah.
so like I got super sensitive. I like not being around people for days
Yeah.
at a time. I really really like even dogs sometimes are like that's a lot of energy because like I'm that sensitive and I always have been. And the gift that I had, you knew, you prayed that you could heal people. Mine was like, can I tell everyone that animals are just in different bodies? They're the same as us. There's no separation. It's an illusion. And so, as I've been doing this amazing house sitting journey, I am learning more and more and more about how freaking sentient animals are
Yeah.
and how true that inner knowing of the illusion of separation. I mean, plants and trees and rock, rocks too, where they're all us. They just are in different bodies and forms.
Yeah. Well,
And
and it's interesting, even mentioning rocks, there's I don't remember exactly where it is, but there's a scripture, in the Bible that talks about if, nobody would worship, even the rocks would cry out. And it says that pretty specifically in there.
yeah.
And it's true. We are, I think, even, if you look at the complexity of insects, of ants, and the fact that, you mentioned trees and how they are alive. They do communicate. Same with mushrooms. There's
Oh, and they love talking to us too.
Yeah, life exists in a far grander scale, I think, than what we've been led to believe.
Mhm.
As just in general. And it's funny, you mentioned the whole, like you prayed to heal people, with your hands, and you did this. I'll be honest, I didn't expect them to answer the prayer. I didn't expect, like, that was just kind of, hey, I'm just putting this out there, like it was genuine. Like, I wish I could, but
Yeah.
just never
Oh
thought that it
yeah,
would
well,
actually happen.
I always
You
wanted,
know?
like, I've always been friends with animals, like genuine, like a human would be friends with their buddy.
Yeah,
Those are animals with me. Like they're genuine friends to me, and most people don't really quite. I think they're beginning to get it, but
yeah.
like I'm like this beautiful four-legged I'm with right now. I had a conversation with him the other day. I'm like, buddy, I get it because he ran into a soccer game.
Okay.
And I was like, and he just like, he was full. Oh my God, I'm in my full glory. I'm just so like, I'm trying to like call him back, not because I'm mad at him, but just because I don't want us to get in trouble
Yeah,
because we're still in the 3D, right?
right.
Not in the 5D yet, but we're getting there, but we're not there yet. And I sat down with him later. I'm like, buddy, honey, I get it. I so get it. I see who you are. Like I feel your vibration. I feel your frequency. You're a divine being. You're not doing the old codependency thing that humans have done with animals for forever. But we're not quite there yet. I can't have you running in a soccer game because we're not there yet. People aren't ready to receive the awareness that you're a sovereign being too.
Yeah. And
And he was like, I'm like, I'm
I
so
think a lot of that is our own, it's our own lack of awareness of ourselves, right? It's like people have to realize just how truly sovereign they are before they can realize
sorry.
that in others sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and we're learning our sovereignty. Like
Yeah.
as a simple example is like we get free will choice all the time. Whether or not we are aware of it, we have free will choice. Like this dog, I asked him to sit before we went into the dog park. He didn't sit. We didn't go into the dog park. That's free will choice.
Yeah.
And like it's a simple example, but like we have free will choice all the time. It's
Yes, we
just
do.
whether or not we're conscious of it. And
Yeah,
like,
aligning, right? Like aligning
yeah,
with some of what those choices are. I think sometimes our energetic state, which I think emotional state, you know, another way you could even put that is, and along with our state of mind, which those all work together, sometimes that can close you off to opportunities. And that's when it's talking about aligning and frequency. Well, if you're not in the best state of mind, then maybe an opportunity presents itself, but you don't see it or you don't recognize it because your thought process is kind of somewhere else.
right.
Whereas, and so I think it's, again, that working on that, just working on that alignment, and our free will obviously plays a big role in that, because where we're at emotionally, energetically, is going to make a big determination as to what decisions we make in those moments and what we're willing to pursue or not.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel that because like a fascinating example is I have in a previous iteration of me, I have a lot of experience in media.
Okay.
And I was recently on LinkedIn, somebody saw my profile but didn't connect with me. So I went to his profile and I connected with him. I'm like, I saw you saw my profile. What's up?
Yeah.
And because that's what, well, he's co-creating a station of conscious different like conscious platforms for education, for animation, for even movies and all these things. And he's bringing collaborators together. And I was like, I love collaboration. That's like my favorite way of being. And I've been looking for collaboration. I haven't had it in a long time. So this is a
Yeah.
potentiality to, and we're in the beginning stages of collaborating. And it's because I allowed myself to be curious and
Yeah.
like, you sniffed me out. I'm going to sniff you out. Who are you? And why are you reaching out? And, I don't know what it's going to be. And it doesn't really matter. The fact that I allowed that nudge to push me forward is the fascinating part.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what it's going to be
Well,
like being.
exactly. Like you said, you don't not sure what might come out of it, but at least you have an opportunity to find out. Whereas if
Yeah.
you didn't follow up with that nudge, then maybe you would just be wondering, or it might be something that's lost. But at least, if nothing else, it's an opportunity for connection and to see where it goes. So yeah, I think that's a great example.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a same with being down here in Bend, like it's high desert. It's not, I love the people, the connections I'm making are amazing. I personally would have never said, yes, high desert. That's where I want to live. But that's where my soul wants me to be.
Yeah,
And because of me listening to it, I'm meeting potentialities that I haven't had anywhere else. So it's like, okay,
yeah.
soul, I gotta listen to you, even though it's like my preference is like cedars. I love cedars. Cedars don't grow in high desert. So like, where are the
No.
cedars? It's like,
Go find a little cedar tree, Get
I know, like junipers has their own wisdom, but like my preference is cedars. And so it's like, okay, well, get over that because all trees talk and you're here for a reason. And I don't know what that reason is, and I don't have to.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it'll be evident at some point, hopefully.
Definitely will. It definitely will.
Yeah,
I don't I feel it. It's just like it's just surrendering that the questioning part of me to the knowing part of me.
yeah. That's a good way to put that actually. Yeah. Instead of asking the why, just start doing the do, and then the why becomes evident.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a different way of
Yeah.
being, but
Yeah.
it's the way we're supposed to be. Like it's funny because I say if somebody like plans something with me, I'm like, okay, I'm putting it on my calendar. I don't know what that is going to happen until the day it happens, and I look at my calendar because I
Yeah.
don't want to be thinking 2 or 3 weeks out because that takes me out of now.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a
that's,
con-
I think, yeah, being able to, it sounds like a mechanism, for being able to stay present. I kind of go back and forth. There are times it's, yeah, I'll get it out there and it pops into my mind, but it's like I don't prepare. It was like even like for today, it's like I'm working during the day on my day job right now, and so I've got time set aside during my lunch, and it's like, oh, about that time, let's pop on, see what happens.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's
um,
beautiful because like that state of flow of the not needing to know,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's getting out of that fear of missing out um into
it's
the
yeah, it's the same principle I have when I do like the Oracle card videos and stuff that I'll do, like a card of the day that I'll post on some social media outlets and that stuff. And I never know what's going to happen. I don't draw the card ahead of time. I mean, I'm not really editing the video. I hit record and I start shuffling, and however long it takes to come out comes out. Sometimes it's right away, sometimes it takes a little bit. And I don't know what that card's going to be, but or cards, in this case, but it's just having that, kind of having that trust, right? And just moving forward and, so far it seems to work out okay.
So since you are on your lunch hour, and I do want you to get some food.
I'll admit I'm starting to feel it a little
All
bit.
right, we're gonna wrap it up. But I do want to ask you one question. How do people find you?
Oh, yeah. Sourcefulhealing.com is my website. I'm also on Instagram. I've just started actually an Instagram for Sourceful Healing.
Awesome.
Um, TikTok, I'm on TikTok posting videos under the handle of Serendipitous Shaman. I thought that was pretty appropriate for me.
I love it.
Yeah, and then of course I'm on LinkedIn. Jeremy Scevers. I'm easy to find. The spelling kind of tricks people up. It's the, Scevers. So it's, people hear Sievers and forget about the silent C. I just tell them to think of scenery or scissors. It's that same sort of rule in there. But yeah, that's how people can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and for sharing this space with me. I'm so grateful.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to connect and, hopefully, be able to do it again sometime.
Ah, thank
Yeah.
you.